In the quiet French countryside, there's a school no one dares to enter after dark. Teachers vanished, students whispered about strange voices, and the building itself seems alive. Tonight, we uncover the true story of St. Bernard School, one of France's most haunted and mysterious places. Stay with me. What you're about to hear is not fiction. In September 2019, the prestigious St. Verlaine boarding school, located on the outskirts of Lyon, France, welcomed its new class of students. The institution had been operating for over a century, known for its excellence, strict discipline, and its imposing stone architecture surrounded by dense woods. For most families, it represented opportunity, a future for their children. But behind the heavy iron gates, something else lingered, a presence that many would later describe as the silence that never slept. Teachers began noticing strange incidents almost immediately. Classroom doors opening on their own, lights flickering at exact times each night, and faint whispers in the hallways when no one was there. The headmistress, Madame Lefebvre, dismissed the rumors, blaming stress and teenage imagination. But her written notes, found later by investigators, told a different story. She had written, "There is something here with us. I feel it watching, waiting." At the time, no one outside the school knew what was happening within those walls. But by the end of that semester, St. Verlaine would become one of the most disturbing, unsolved cases in modern French history. The first official incident was recorded on October 12, 2019, barely a month after classes began. A janitor named Pierre Laurent, who had worked at St. Verlaine for more than 20 years, reported hearing footsteps echoing through the West Wing long after midnight. That part of the school was supposed to be locked. No students or staff were allowed there after 8 p.m. Pierre followed the sound with his flashlight. The corridor stretched long and narrow, the old wooden floors creaking beneath each careful step. As he approached classroom 3B, the sound stopped. The door was slightly open, even though he remembered locking it earlier. Inside, the desks were arranged neatly, except for one. A single chair was turned toward the blackboard, and written across the board in faint chalk were 3 words: "We are awake." The next morning, the writing was gone. No one admitted to doing it. Pierre resigned a week later without giving notice, and when police tried to contact him months later for questioning, they found he had vanished completely, leaving behind his house, car, and even his dog. By November, rumors had spread across the dormitories. Students whispered about strange dreams, identical ones shared by different people on the same night. They described a dark figure standing at the foot of their beds, whispering in a language none could understand. 2 girls from dorm room 7 reported seeing handprints appear on their window from the outside, 4 floors above the ground. When staff checked the glass, they found long streaks as if someone had dragged their fingers down the pane. One student, Amélie Durand, began recording everything on her phone. In one video, filmed at 2:43 a.m., the sound of footsteps can be heard, followed by the faint cry of a girl saying, "Il est là," "He's here." Police later authenticated the video. The voice did not belong to anyone in the dormitory. The administration tried to control the panic by forbidding discussions about ghost stories. But the fear had already rooted itself deep, and the school's atmosphere changed. Teachers said even during daylight, the halls felt darker. After a series of complaints from parents, the Ministry of Education sent an inspector, Julien Moreau, to evaluate the situation. He spent 3 nights in the school, staying in a guest room adjacent to the West Wing. In his report, which was later leaked to the media, he wrote, "There is something deeply wrong in this building. The walls absorb sound and the air feels heavier. At exactly 3:11 a.m., I heard a child laughing in the corridor. When I opened the door, nothing. Only cold air and the smell of wet soil." Julien left the school the next morning and refused to return. A week later, he was found dead in his apartment in Lyon, an apparent suicide. But investigators noted something strange. On his wall, written in charcoal, were the same 3 words from the classroom incident: "We are awake." On December 2, 2019, a storm hit Lyon, cutting power to the entire area. That night, 4 students, Amélie Durand, Luc Martin, Sophie Reynaud, and Nina Fontaine went missing from their dorm rooms. Their beds were found neatly made, their belongings untouched, but every single one of their phones had stopped recording at 3:11 a.m. Security cameras captured only static during that time window. When power was restored the next morning, the footage showed something chilling. For exactly 3 seconds before the blackout, a shadow moved across the hallway, tall, distorted, and walking toward dorm 4B. Despite massive search operations, no trace of the students was ever found. The school closed indefinitely in early 2020. To this day, locals avoid the building. At night, they say, lights still flicker in the West Wing. By early February, the school's atmosphere had grown heavy, almost suffocating. Strange messages began appearing on the whiteboards of empty classrooms, messages that seemed to be written by an invisible hand. Teachers would erase them before leaving, only to find them rewritten the next morning, always in the same elegant cursive. Phrases like, "We never left," "They still watch from the attic," and "The bell tolls for those who remember," appeared in different rooms at the same exact time every night. The janitor, an old man named Jacques, swore he saw chalk moving on its own. The administration checked the security footage repeatedly, but every night at 3:12 a.m., all the cameras flickered to static, the exact minute the previous janitor had been found dead in the basement years earlier. Rumors spread like wildfire among the students. Some claimed to hear the faint echo of laughter in the empty gymnasium. Children's laughter, though no one was there. Others swore they saw shadows moving swiftly behind the lockers, as if someone, or something, was still roaming the halls after dark. 2 senior students decided to stay after hours and record what they could. Around 3 a.m., their phones captured a strange noise. A woman's whisper, trembling and broken. "Don't open the door, please." The next morning, when they replayed the audio, the whisper had changed. It wasn't soft anymore. It was a scream so loud that the file corrupted halfway through. Both students dropped out a week later, refusing to explain why. Madame Leroux, the French literature teacher, began to lose sleep. Every morning, she found her classroom rearranged. Chairs turned toward the walls, books opened to pages about death and guilt. Her students' notebooks were spread across her desk, pages torn, red ink smeared over certain words. Forgive, return, betrayal. One night, she decided to confront whatever was happening. She stayed late, sitting alone in the dimly lit classroom. At precisely 3:12, the lights began to flicker. She heard the sound of footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, heavy. When she peeked outside, she saw a figure wearing an old St. Véran student uniform. The figure stood perfectly still, head tilted, eyes nothing but dark, hollow pits. By March, panic had spread through the staff. The headmaster requested an official investigation. Specialists installed motion detectors, night vision cameras, and temperature sensors throughout the school. For 3 nights, nothing unusual occurred, until the 4th. At 3:12 a.m., all 16 classrooms recorded a sudden drop in temperature to 6 degrees Celsius. Motion sensors activated in unoccupied rooms. Audio recorders picked up the dragging of metal chains and the faint cry of a child. When the footage was reviewed, every camera captured the same frame. Corridor lights flickering violently, then freezing on a pale, translucent hand pressing firmly against the lens, as if trying to get out. The recordings were sent to experts in Paris for digital analysis. Officials claimed it was simply technical interference, a convenient explanation. But that same week, one of the investigators, a man named Duval, was found unconscious in his car outside the school. His fingernails were cracked and bloody, as if he had tried to claw at something. Witnesses said he was mumbling in his sleep, repeating the same phrase over and over. "They're still inside. They never left." When he awoke, he refused to speak of it, resigned from his position, and vanished from public view. The investigation was quietly closed. Yet for those who worked within St. Véran, it was clear. Something ancient and vengeful had awakened within those walls. The days that followed were marked by tension and silence. Teachers avoided staying after hours, and students began skipping classes. The hallways, once filled with laughter and chatter, became eerily quiet. The janitor, Jacques, was the only one who dared to remain in the building at night. He claimed he heard desks scraping across floors and faint music echoing from the music room, an old melody no one recognized. One night he followed the sound, recording it on his phone. The next morning, his phone was found shattered in the hallway. The recording was corrupted, except for a few seconds of audio. A child's voice singing softly in French. Les murs se souviennent. The walls remember. A week later, the headmaster called an emergency meeting. Half the staff didn't show up. Those who did sat pale-faced, trembling, as Madame Leroux revealed something she had found. An old photograph hidden behind the classroom chalkboard. It showed a group of children standing in front of the school, dated 1963. Behind them, barely visible in the shadowed window, was a woman's face, the same one Madame Leroux claimed she saw in the hallway. The room went silent. Someone whispered, "That's her, the teacher who disappeared." The photo was sent for verification, but when returned, the face in the window was gone. Soon after, strange electrical issues began plaguing the building. Lights flickered even during the day, and the fire alarms would sound at exactly 3:12 a.m. every night. Electricians were brought in, but their equipment failed inside the West Wing. One technician described feeling a pressure like being underwater. Another refused to return after hearing what sounded like children chanting behind the walls. The school board blamed old wiring, but no one could explain why new bulbs shattered the moment they were installed near the attic stairs. As fear grew, a journalist named Camille Bernard arrived from Lyon, determined to uncover the truth behind the haunting. She interviewed former teachers and locals, piecing together a dark history. The Saint Véran school had once been an orphanage during the 1940s, when France was still reeling from the war. Dozens of children had perished in a mysterious fire that consumed the West Wing, the same part of the building where the phenomena were now strongest. Official reports called it an accident, but Camille found testimonies suggesting otherwise. The doors had been locked from the outside. Camille decided to stay overnight inside the school to document the activity herself. Armed with a camera, a recorder, and a flashlight, she entered just before midnight. The building felt alive. Floors creaked under her feet, and a faint humming filled the air. She began speaking into her recorder, narrating every sound, every movement. At 3:10 a.m., she reported a sudden cold breeze and the faint smell of smoke. At 3:12, her recording ended abruptly with a loud crash. The next morning, police found her camera near the stairwell. The last frame captured her flashlight rolling across the floor, and a child's hand reaching toward it. Camille Bernard's disappearance became national news within days. French authorities searched the school and surrounding woods for nearly a week, but found nothing except her broken recorder and the remnants of melted wax on the floor, as if candles had been burning all night. The last entry in her notebook, written hastily in uneven handwriting, read, "The children are not gone. They remember the fire. They want to be heard." Locals began leaving flowers at the school gates, calling her a hero for uncovering what others refused to face. Yet the police quietly sealed the building once again, declaring it unsafe for entry. At night, neighbors claimed they still saw a single light flickering in the upper window, the one that belonged to the music room where Camille had vanished. Months passed, and the story faded from the headlines, but not from memory. A new caretaker, a retired soldier named Henri Delcourt, was hired to monitor the abandoned property. He kept a detailed log of his duties, maintenance checks, patrol times, and any unusual occurrences. His notes started off mundane but grew darker each week. He wrote about footsteps echoing from the third floor, the faint laughter of children in the vents, and once, the unmistakable sound of a piano playing from the locked music room. Henri recorded his findings for the board, but one entry stood out. "I saw them tonight. Small figures in the courtyard. They stopped when I turned the flashlight on, and then they smiled." One evening, Henri set up his own camera in the hallway leading to the West Wing, determined to capture whatever haunted the building. Around 3 a.m., the motion sensor triggered. The footage, later recovered by authorities, showed the corridor dimly lit, the air shimmering as if disturbed by heat. Then, a shape emerged from the shadows. Not a single figure, but several small silhouettes, moving slowly in unison. They appeared to be children, their outlines flickering like smoke. One of them turned toward the camera. Its face was pale, with black hollows where the eyes should have been. The recording ended as the lens cracked from an unseen force. Henri's body was never found. After Henri's disappearance, the French Ministry of Education permanently closed Saint-Véran. Steel barriers were installed, and access was forbidden. Yet that didn't stop thrill seekers and amateur ghost hunters from sneaking in. Videos began appearing online. Shaky footage showing classrooms covered in dust, desks still marked with children's names. In one viral clip, a group of explorers found a chalkboard that had written itself while they filmed. The words, in neat cursive, read, "You shouldn't be here." The video ended with their camera falling to the floor and the sound of running footsteps echoing through the halls. Authorities later confirmed the group was never identified, and their channel disappeared days later. Today, Saint-Véran stands silent, its windows boarded, its halls filled with dust and whispers. Locals claim that on cold winter nights, when fog blankets the small French town, you can still hear the faint echo of a school bell ringing. At exactly 3:12 a.m. Those brave enough to walk near the gates say the air grows colder, and if you listen closely, you might hear the sound of children reciting lessons, in perfect harmony. No one dares to enter anymore, yet every year, without fail, a candle mysteriously appears on the steps of the West Wing. No one knows who places it there, or why it always burns until dawn. Nearly a decade after Saint-Véran was sealed, a Paris-based documentary team called Echo Noir received special permission from the Ministry of Culture to film inside the ruins. Their goal was to uncover the truth behind the school's dark legend, and perhaps restore the forgotten story of the children who perished in the mysterious fire of 1958. The team consisted of 5 members: director Lucien Moreau, cinematographer Isabelle Charon, sound engineer Marc Lefebvre, historian Dr. Thérèse Roux, and journalist Antoine Lemaire. They arrived in late November, when the sky over the countryside was heavy with clouds and the air smelled faintly of snow. From the moment they entered the gates, their cameras began recording every second. None of them realized that what they were documenting was not a story, but a warning. Inside, the building was eerily preserved. The air was stale, filled with the faint smell of old wood and soot. The team moved cautiously through the corridors, documenting each room. Isabelle's camera captured hallways lined with decayed lockers and faded murals of smiling children holding hands, images that felt wrong against the silence that surrounded them. Dr. Roux stopped frequently, taking notes about the school's architecture and commenting on its unusual design. "It's as if the West Wing was rebuilt multiple times," she murmured. "The walls don't align with the original blueprints." That night, while reviewing footage, Lucien noticed something in one of the shots, a reflection in a cracked classroom window. Behind them, barely visible, stood a figure wearing what looked like a 1950s school uniform. None of the crew had seen anyone else in the building. The second day brought heavier tension. Mark, the sound engineer, began complaining about interference on his equipment, whispering static, distant hums, and at one point what sounded unmistakably like children singing. He replayed the audio several times for the group. The voices were faint but melodic, repeating an old French nursery rhyme. "Frère Jacques, dormez-vous." The recording continued even after they stopped filming, and when Mark unplugged the microphone, the singing didn't stop. That night, the team slept in the van outside the school, too unnerved to stay inside. Isabelle woke up at 3:12 a.m. to see the school's bell tower faintly glowing. Not with light, but with fire, flickering like the reflection of a past event replaying itself through time. She screamed, waking the others, but when they looked, the glow was gone. On the third day, they entered the West Wing, the section most associated with the hauntings. The air there was colder, and their breath misted as if they were outdoors. They found the remains of burned desks, melted crayons fused into the floor, and on one wall, dozens of small handprints scorched into the plaster. Dr. Roux whispered, trembling, "These weren't made by fire. They're pressed in." Antoine set up an interview shot in front of the music room door. While he spoke about the legend of Camille Bernard, Isabelle noticed the doorknob turning slowly behind him. The footage later showed that it turned exactly 3 times, stopped, and then the faint sound of a piano chord echoed through the hall. When they opened the door moments later, the room was empty, except for a single child's shoe, perfectly clean, resting in the middle of the floor. By the 4th night, fear had replaced curiosity. The team decided to pack up and leave the next morning. Lucien, however, insisted on filming one last sequence, a walk through the main hallway at midnight to serve as the film's closing shot. He went in alone, camera rolling, narrating quietly, "If there are voices here, let them speak now." What the recovered footage showed afterwards stunned investigators. As Lucien walked, the camera caught shadows moving parallel to him on the walls, shadows of children walking hand in hand. Then came the echo of a school bell. The lights of his camera flickered violently, and in the final frame, a dozen figures stood at the end of the hallway, facing him. Their mouths opened in silence, and the video ended abruptly. Lucien's body was found the next morning near the gates, eyes wide open, camera clutched tightly in his frozen hands. The SD card inside was empty. 3 months after the tragedy, police investigators entered Saint-Véran to collect any remaining evidence. They found the team's equipment scattered, all lights broken, batteries drained as if they had been running continuously for days. The authorities dismissed the case as a tragic accident, a filmmaker's obsession gone wrong. But the story didn't end there. When the police analysts examined the recovered camera casing, they found traces of human fingerprints, small, child-sized, pressed into the plastic, as if melted by heat. Even stranger was what happened to Captain Rousseau, the lead investigator. Within weeks of reviewing the footage, he began reporting nightmares. His wife claimed he would wake at exactly 3:12 a.m., drenched in sweat, whispering, "They were never buried." A year later, Rousseau was found dead in his study, surrounded by charred documents and the melted remains of his laptop. In 2024, a new documentary team attempted to revisit the case for a streaming platform. They obtained access to archived police material, photos, floor plans, audio logs. But one sealed file drew particular attention. Inside was a series of letters written by the former headmistress, Madame Lefebvre, weeks before her disappearance. Her final note read, "They told me the foundation was built on the remains of the orphanage fire. I hear them still. They never stopped singing." This revelation shocked the new investigators. Saint-Véran, it turned out, wasn't built from scratch in 1912 as the records claimed. It had been constructed directly atop the ruins of a burned orphanage, whose victims were never properly buried. The West Wing, the most haunted part, stood precisely over what used to be the children's dormitory. The crew decided to conduct one controlled overnight recording inside the building with infrared cameras and motion sensors. They set up equipment across the West Wing and sealed the entrances. At 2:47 a.m., the motion detector in Classroom 7 activated. On the feed, faint shapes began to form. Dozens of translucent figures, no taller than a child, gathering in a circle. One of them turned toward the camera, its face smooth, featureless, yet somehow aware. The system's temperature reading dropped from 12 degrees Celsius to -5 degrees Celsius in seconds. Then, the singing began again. Frère Jacques, faint, layered with whispers. The lead producer's voice trembled through the walkie-talkie. "Shut it down. Shut it down now." But before the team could power off the system, every camera lens cracked simultaneously, and the building went dark. The next morning, the crew emerged unharmed but deeply shaken. They refused to discuss what had happened, and all recordings appeared corrupted. However, one camera's audio track remained intact. When restored, The background noise revealed something unexpected. Beneath the singing and static, there was a voice, older, female, whispering in French. Nous ne voulions pas mourir ici. We did not want to die here. Experts later confirmed the voice matched archived recordings of Madame Lefebvre herself, the headmistress who vanished in 1961. The implication was horrifying. Her spirit, bound with the children she once failed to save, still roamed the halls of Saint Verenne, forever trapped between guilt and the cries of the lost. Today, the Saint Verenne school remains sealed, fenced off by the French Ministry of Heritage. No official tours are allowed, yet locals claim to still hear the bell ringing some nights, always at 3:12 a.m. Every few years, thrill seekers break into film, but none stay until dawn. Some leave their cameras behind, footage frozen mid-frame as if time itself stopped inside. In 2025, a motion sensor installed by urban explorers triggered unexpectedly, recording only one thing: the sound of small footsteps and a child's voice saying, "Are you awake, Frère Jacques?" To this day, no one has been able to explain what truly happened in those halls. The ministry insists the building is empty, but if you stand outside its gates at night, when the wind passes through the trees, you can still hear it, the faint echo of children singing in the dark. The doors of St. Bernard remain locked, but some nights, locals say they still hear children laughing inside. Maybe the school never truly closed. Don't forget to subscribe, because next week, we uncover another place where the shadows never sleep.